The men in this van are on a life and death mission. We follow as they offer civilians a way out of one of the most dangerous parts of the country.
It's the adrenaline. You keep driving, and don't pay attention to the danger. This is a risk you take to try to save lives. You have to take risks to do something useful. People are not to blame for what is happening.
The Ukrainian government's orders are clear. Everyone in Kupyansk and the surrounding areas has to leave. Russia says it has captured positions in the region. Shelling and destruction are part of everyday life here. Igor's first stop today is a village on the outskirts of the city. Anna and her 3 small children are ready to go. She's been living here with her husband's family. He is absent. Anna's mother-in-law Lena won't join her. She and her 2 sons are staying.
I don't want to leave. Who would look after the house? I still have 2 children here. And where would I go? I have nowhere to go.
She's written civilians and children on her gate, hoping it'll provide some protection if the Russians return. Ivan is about as old as the war. The family spent much of his life in a basement to avoid shelling and Russian soldiers. He now finds the outside world terrifying, says Anna.
When the Russian soldiers got drunk, they would have loud parties. They had fights, and sometimes they would shoot at each other right in front of us. And the shelling damaged our house. Children need to see something other than war and occupation. My children have been traumatized for the rest of their lives from what they have seen.
Anna and her kids are leaving the danger zone, but many are not taking that decision. Some 2,000 people have signed documents stating they won't evacuate and won't hold authorities responsible if anything happens to them. Many in Kupyansk are openly hostile to us. Others tell us why they chose to stay.
If we leave Kupyansk, even if my house is not bombed, only 4 walls will remain. There is so much theft. They take everything. And I will be left with nothing at the age of 60. Where should I go? I am 68 years old. Who needs me? I will stay in Kupyansk. If they kill me, they kill me. What can I do? Where can I go? Here at least I'm at home. Here at least I have something.
The city has a special place in the story of this war. It's geographically closer to Russia than to the regional capital Kyiv. And early on in the invasion, the mayor surrendered. Russian soldiers occupied Kupyansk for 6 months. Volunteers tell me they suspect some of those refusing to leave are staying in the hope that Russia will take over again.
We call them the long waiters. Unfortunately, in these areas on the border with Russia, the occupier, there are such people. To be honest, everyone who wanted and was able to, they left after the liberation. Because listening to explosions all year, even a healthy person will become sick.
This billboard at the entrance of the city says Kupyansk is Ukraine. On the other side it asks, do you have information about traitors to Ukraine? An investigator tells me that of the 285 people in the region being investigated for collaboration with Russia, 100 are in Kupyansk. Some are even suspected of actively working against Ukraine's war effort.
Collaborative activity stands next to war crimes. We have had cases when we investigated a person who publicly expressed a pro-Russian position on social networks. Then it turns out that this person is helping to direct Russian rockets, working as an FSB agent.
Anna and her children arrive at a reception center in Kharkiv, 100 kilometers away from Kupyansk. The kids get toys while she registers. They get places in a dormitory. They can stay here until she figures out what to do next.
It's scary when your child says, "We saw a blown-up tank and dead soldiers just lying on the road." The children saw all this. I don't want them to see it anymore. I want to show them that there is a much better life than what we have seen. I want to show them more than I saw myself. I want them to live and to have everything.
Anna does not know what the future holds for her and her children. But for now, being away from the immediate threat and feeling safe is enough.
DW Special Correspondent Aya Ibrahim filed that report. She joins us now from Kyiv. Aya, that was a harrowing story there of the mother experiencing the horror of war with her small children. This war is continuing to take a heavy toll on civilians in Ukraine, isn't it?
She's just one of millions, Terry. Since this war began, 8 million Ukrainians have been registered as refugees in Europe, and about 5 billion, or a little bit more than that, are internally displaced, as in the case of Anna. And it just shows that, you know, behind the headlines of counteroffensive losses or gains, what that translates to on the ground is, you know, human tragedy that it keeps getting worse and worse every day that this war goes by.
Now, we saw in your report there, Aya, that despite the shelling, many people near the front lines are staying in their homes, refusing to evacuate. It's a story we've seen it again and again throughout this war. Tell us more about those people who refuse to leave.
Right. I think the vast majority are old people. You have to imagine, you know, who know no other place than this particular town or village that they're from. In the case of Lena's mother-in-law, who kept saying, where would I go? Of course, theoretically, there are places for her to go, shelters in more safer areas. But for them, you know, their world begins and ends in their little hometown, and oftentimes they can't even imagine what it would be like to go in the outside world. They feel that they've already endured, you know, horrors, occupation, war, strikes, and that, you know, it is safer where they are. In the case of Kupyansk, as we've seen specifically, there's also people who are suspected of having pro-Russia sympathies. It's a minority, but it's a minority that certainly exists, and there are also collaborators or people who are, you know, actively, then it's not just about sentiment, it's more about action. And prosecutors and investigators that I've spoken to, they assured me that Ukraine is a democracy, so people do not get prosecuted or go to prison for their opinions. Collaboration is really when someone takes an action, and there's a range of that, and that starts with publicly expressing support for Russia and the war. It also includes people like teachers or administrators who during the occupation actively collaborated and cooperated with occupying forces, and of course people who then, you know, give information to Russian forces that then result in deaths. And that's at the same level as the lead investigator there said with war crimes.
Talk to us a little bit, Aya, about what's happening right now militarily in Ukraine. The Ukrainian armed forces are continuing with their counteroffensive, trying to push Russian forces farther south. What can you tell us about that?
Well, in the past few days, we've seen Ukraine regain the southern village settlement of Robotyne in the Zaporizhzhia region. That village is not very different, not very dissimilar from other villages that Ukraine has managed to regain throughout this counteroffensive. These are small settlements, but the difference with Robotyne is that it is of potential strategic importance. It's on a road that leads directly to Tokmak, which is a rail hub for Russian occupational authorities. And 85 kilometers from Robotyne, there's the city of Melitopol. 85 kilometers is a long way, but that particular gain, analysts are saying, could put Ukraine on the track to make more strategic gains. Melitopol is known as one of the gateways to Crimea, and Ukrainian authorities have time and again said that Crimea is the center of gravity in this counteroffensive. And if they get there, they could separate Russian forces and, potentially make larger gains. But these gains in the southeast, there is a fear that they're coming at the cost of people in the north, as we've seen in Kupyansk, where Russian forces are coming very, very close to Kupyansk.
Aya, thank you very much for that. That was our special correspondent, Aya Ibrahim, in Kyiv.